Hi, I'm Jackie. Welcome to my bower. And let me take you down because I'm going to continue talking about the four Sam Mendes Beatles biopics. Today I'm going to be looking at movie number 2, but before I do that, I'm going to look back at movie number 1, where I had Ringo lead everything off. Yeah, I had Ringo star in it because, in my opinion, he deserved it. And also, I felt like he was the best one to introduce us to the Beatles. We could look over his shoulder as he gets to know them, as he fits in with the band. We can look at his life. Uh, like, I don't think we've ever really seen a movie about him. So it's about time. Ringo was really tough inside. He had to be, after all he went through, and it prepped him to become a Beatle, to be able to do his job and to be steady and let everybody kind of bounce off of him, and for him to be able to put up with everything that he did. And Ringo's story is a lot like, everybody's, where we're just trying to fit in. We are trying to figure out who we are. We are just looking for some friends. We're looking for a place to call home. We have something to say, and we hope everybody's going to maybe listen to us. We can watch Ringo on his journey as he does that, going from like this sickly kid, in Liverpool, joining the Beatles, becoming a star, family man, juggling all of that, and just eventually turning into this guy who feels a lot more confident and really understands his value through this brotherhood that he's formed with these guys. If anybody asks you what makes the Beatles so wonderful, it's that magic chemistry that lives there, that is between them all, that binds them all together. Now, what did George say that one time? George says, when you get certain people together, it makes fire. And that's exactly what happened. Ringo set everything off in Hamburg. He created that spark that lit the fire that made the Beatles become the Beatles. But before that, there was John Lennon. And that's movie number 2. And John's story is much like Ringo's. He's looking for ways to express himself. He's looking for a place to call home. He's looking for some place to go. He's trying to figure out what works for him. He obviously finds it along the way, but he also finds all these different ways to express himself, eventually landing on rock and roll as his ticket to the top. Now, he doesn't know that that's where he's going. He absolutely does not know that that's where, but he's going someplace. That's the thing about John. John is like, I need to get out there and I need to do something. This is what I'm doing now. You want to come with me? Great. If you don't, fine. I'm just going to okay, I don't need to go to school. I don't need to do this. I don't need to fit in. This is what I want to do now. Hey, you kind of want to go with me? I mean, there was a lot of bravado there. There was a lot of courage, but I think covering up a lot of vulnerability and fear. And that's like all of us. Sometimes we allow our fears to stop us in our tracks. We freeze and we stop and we think about it, okay? And that's good. Sometimes you should kind of stop if you're afraid and think about it before you act. Well, I'm sure that John did, but I feel like a lot of the times he just didn't. And so this is why sometimes he got himself into trouble, but this is also how he experienced things. John is always changing, doing something different every time. He was, and I'm not just talking about how he looked on the outside. John was, again, John's journey in order to find himself and to figure out who he was and to express himself, to find his peace and to find his truth, he was always changing and experimenting. And that meant trying out new things. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't. Working with different people, sometimes that worked, sometimes that didn't. One of the persons that he worked with, one of the early people he worked with, was Paul. And we know the story of how he met Paul. And, I hope that they show that from both John's point of view and from Paul's point of view. And from John's point of view, he was probably not so sure about things. He probably got that feeling, and even he says that he was saying, he'd probably be pretty good for the group, but maybe he'll be better than me. Now, that's kind of a scary thing for a guy like John, but John took that chance and John extended that invitation. And then Paul took that chance and said, yeah, sure. Okay. I mean, they're kids. I mean, obviously to us, it's like a huge momentous thing now, but to them, I mean, no big deal. You know, it was just another Tuesday. And I wonder what that was like when Paul and John first harmonized together. You know, oh, to be a fly on the wall there. And maybe in this movie, we can be a fly on that wall to kind of see them first singing together. What was that like for them to experience that for the first time? Now, you know, they're kids and they probably didn't think really anything of it, I'm sure. But who knows? Now, the other thing to look at is that budding working relationship that they had, where they formed that everlasting forever bond. But it had to start someplace, and it all started with, you know, John and Paul probably saying, hey, you know, I got a song too. All right, Paul, let's take a look at your song. Paul, what do you got here? So that was pretty smart of John. It's like making Paul go first, making Paul kind of expose himself first. So Paul's going, yeah, Paul's up for it. Paul goes, okay, look at this song. I've had this song for a while. Look at this. Look at the words here. You know, John, what do you think? I'm going to sing this song to you. Here you go. And then John goes, okay. All right. Well, it's pretty good, Paul. You know, maybe we can change a couple of things here and there, but one thing's for sure is I'm not singing that word. That song, that word right there, that's stupid. What are you thinking with that word? That's not going to fly, Paul. Okay? We're going to think of something else. Try this word instead. Paul goes, okay, that does work a lot better. That's great. So here we go. And actually, it's automatically better. And so Paul goes, yes. And then that inspires Paul probably to make his song better, to make his tune better. He adds stuff to it. And John's inspired by that. And they just kind of keep going up and up like this, getting to this level, creating this bond where they just trust each other, where everything just kind of comes from here with them, where they open up to each other. They expose themselves. Hey, this is what I got. Yeah, this is what I got. And this is my truth. Hey, this is my truth. And they're both kind of going, okay, let's kind of build on that. No big deal. So they really don't know where they're going. They're just doing it automatically. It's like a very natural, a very organic thing that happens between them, where it's a very safe place that's created that just kind of takes them all the way to the top. You know, and gets us to where we are now. It's just this everlasting magical thing that, of course, forms the heart of the Beatles, that is still beating today, and beating in harmony, by the way. I know that's cringy. I'm sorry. But, you know, yes, it's all cringy. Our whole story, it's all cringe. It's all like kind of corny. I'm sorry. It's all kind of cheesy. Yeah, John and Paul, it's kind of like a love story. Yeah, total cheeseball, but I don't care. You know, it's all good, and I want to see that. Okay, I want to see that. I think everybody wants to see, you know, how they kind of meet, how they kind of become one, because that is where the magic really comes from. That's that, like I said, that's that motor that just takes them up there. You know, and it's not just this it's not always this lovey-dovey motor. It's not always that. Just like George Martin says, it was more like a competition that brought out the best in the other one, that said, hey, I got this over here. Well, you got this? Okay, well, what about this one? So they just kind of kept on, but they both had the same goal, which was basically just doing their best, working to create that end result of the ultimate song, or lyric, or melody, whatever it was that they were working on. They were just trying to do their best, and they just kept going and going with it, and changing and evolving. And honestly, that is John's story. John's story, again, is just all about changing and evolving and getting someplace, even if he really didn't know where he was going. And yeah, the Beatles took him and all of them to some place where they had no idea. And it was a place where no one had been before. It's just this undiscovered territory. And like John says, they were just on that mast, just saying, okay, to everybody, land ho. John was this amazing explorer that just went out ahead, trying different things. Unaf- I shouldn't say unafraid, because I'm sure that he was scared to death inside, but he was still doing it anyway. And that is courageous, and that is that natural leader that binds them all together, that keeps them lifted up, that inspires all the members of the group and even the people around them. It makes everything better. So when John is engaged, when John is there, John is present. John is at his best. John is sitting there cajoling you and being cheeky and saying goofy things and singing goofy songs and singing at you like this, like all that stupid stuff. When they are just riffing on each other, going like that, they're just creating that energetic, creative space for them to play around and make that magic. And, that's why we love that studio chatter, because we know what's going on in there. It's just all the fairy dust and all the magic sprinkles are going on. That's what's happening. And that's why we want to hear, we want to figure out what is the formula. Well, even they really didn't know the formula. They were just doing it. And John was that guy who got them there, who poked them there, who laughed at them with them and joked them and kind of, said, when I got my back up against the wall, I'm at my best. Well, unfortunately, John did get his back up against the wall probably one too many times, especially as, we got into the mid-60s there. Now, and it's unfortunate that it came to that. You just go to the top and all these pressures are created. You've got all these news stories and these scandals and Manila and everything just harshing your buzz. They're trying to have a good time. There's still just those guys who just want to play guitars. They just want to sing songs, but everybody's trying to get a little piece of them, wanting to label them, kind of saying you're this or you're that, or you can't do this or you can't do that. They're just being pulled into so many different places. So that's one reason why they were all so tight, is because they were the only ones that they could trust, that they could lean on. So they all kind of became one. And, and again, and in the end, that's why it was so heart-wrenching for all of them. Getting a little ahead of myself. But yeah, and then as you get into the mid-60s stage, where John got a lot more experimental, was able to kind of relax a little bit. They got into some habits and things that they did that helped them to do that, took them to other places, other artistic levels. Got different influences, listened to different music too, tried different things, like him and George trying different things. George and John's relationship, I think, shifted at that point in time. They were able to kind of have this mutual interest that they shared, and I'm sure it sparked a lot of interesting discussions between them, talking about what trip they were on and what it was like and what they saw and what they felt, and writing music together. So I feel like, John and George probably bonded differently at that point in time. And Paul maybe began to kind of take a little bit of a step back. Maybe he did, maybe he didn't. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But, relationships change all the time. They shift, they go here, they go there. And like I said, John changing all the time, definitely the dynamic of that group is going to change. And because John is that powerful, charismatic, because John is that powerful, charismatic energy that kind of puts them all up here, he can also kind of take them down, and that is the last thing that he would want to do. And because he does come from like a loving place, he would want to keep everybody together, keep lifting everybody up. But man, that is a hard thing to do. And, he's got this, wife and kid at home too, and he has those conflict. He knows he's not been the best. He's letting them down. He feels like maybe I'm letting my friends down too. So he's got all of these pressures that are happening here on the outside, kind of squeezing him. And like I said, all the guy wants to do is just play guitar and make music. Well, things just got a lot more complicated for them. 67, they lost Brian Epstein. Things really shifted then. Even John says, hey, he knew that they were finished then because, they're just not business people. They needed, because they had that playground where they could roll out all of their music, all of their ideas, all the tunes, just put it out there and play and just spend their time. By this time, they could just kind of spend as much time as they wanted in the studio, kind of indulge themselves, thankfully. But when they lost Brian, things got rocky, things began to shift, the tectonic plates began to move around and everything shifted. And I think that really affected all of them. And with John, I feel like he, with creative types, they need that stable anchor. They need something that they can always kind of fall back on. And to a certain degree, that was Brian. And of course, that's George. But a lot of it was Brian. And they all had each other to kind of fall back on. But because, George got married, and then Paul, he was traveling a lot, and he was doing more of his thing. He was in town in London, and they were all out in the country. So John was feeling isolated and saying, like, where do I belong? Where am I? Am I nowhere? What is going on? So with John, there was so much going on inside all the time. Maybe he was an overthinker. I don't know. But again, all of that, he was always creating, always thinking, wanting to go to that other level. And they all wanted to go with him, if at all possible. And when things did get bumpy, like in 1968, John's life changed a lot. He did end that relationship with Cynthia and pretty much left Julian behind, because in his mind, he felt like, this is where I need to go. My life is pulling me and tugging me this way. This life that I've made for myself and for my friends, it's kind of, the walls are closing in and I can't be me anymore. I'm not being able to feel my life. Things don't feel real anymore. It's just not me, and I don't feel right, and I can't, and in that headspace, I cannot do what I want to do, what I'm kind of meant to do. I can't, and if I can't be me, I can't express myself right, and I'm no ding-dong good for anybody. And then in 69, definitely saw all the cracks, in the facade. And in the foundation even, I don't know, the foundation got a little, I don't feel like that foundation has ever totally disappeared. That foundation is still there. They still have that bond that lasted beyond the breakup. But at that point in time, even because they built that, almost like they built their own cage. They had to kind of protect themselves, but it was suffocating to them. And they all felt that to a certain degree. But with John, I felt that he really felt that the most. Because, I'm not saying he was the most sensitive, but maybe he was. Maybe he was the most sensitive. And he had, in his mind, a lot of the pressures were on him to make it happen. Because in his mind, he was always the leader. And even Paul said, like, John, you have always been boss. And at that point in time, John was trying to not be boss. Like, I do want to be boss and I don't want to be boss. He was like, I want to be with these guys. The Beatles is a great vehicle for me. I can do whatever I want here mostly. I enjoy it. It's what I know. It's kind of safe. But do I want safe? But I'm hearing something over here that makes a lot of sense to me, that feels more me, that feels more like maybe there's this new part of me, or this part that I never really knew existed before, or a part that I always had hidden away, or a part that was never really loved or loved the way I wanted. I don't know what I'm feeling. All I know is that this isn't working for me and it's tearing me apart. And I know I probably have to tear everything else apart. So I've always felt like John was halfway in and halfway out of the Beatles in that 68 and 69 period. And even going into 70, halfway in, halfway out. And so while things did get done when John was in that state, it really, really wasn't the same, unfortunately. And they all felt it. You know, they needed John. I mean, John was that Pied Piper. And he could bring everything up when he was on. And we saw in the Get Back sessions how when they were working on Two of Us, right? When John was on, they had gotten to that point and they still weren't happy with Two of Us. But John all of a sudden says, let's try this. I'm thinking it's like this. Right? So John was just kind of pulling stuff and he just makes it look so easy. I'm just trying this. So they just, do the guitar thing, do the acoustic version of it. And it's like, whammo. John goes, yep, this is it. And that is that ding. That is that bell that just rings for them. That they can create because John just like back in the days, like, Paul, this word right here, nuh-uh, not this word. And so John just says, no, it's not a rocker. It's just not. We can't. It's not. We're not out in the car driving. What we're doing with Two of Us. What we're doing here with Two of Us is we're comfy cozy. We're just sitting here. We're just sitting at George's house. We're just playing acoustic guitars together. We're just those kids. We're just those kids mirroring each other. Paul, we're just playing this song to each other, Paul. That's all we're doing. This is Two of Us, man. It's not a rocker. Don't worry about it. Two of Us. And that's that magic, and also being that Pied Piper on the roof. Now watch them. Watch them when they're singing Don't Let Me Down. And John is kind of going, when they're all singing, and it's at the end part where John is going, ooh, hoo, hoo. Oh my God, of course I can't do it. Please excuse me. But John is just doing that and they're just all dancing. They are all dancing together. They're all in sync. They're all in rhythm. John has taken them there to that place and they're not aware of what they're doing, but John is just that Pied Piper. Ooh, hoo, hoo. Oh my God, it's like magic. So this is the magic of John Lennon and his voice, that voice that has all of the emotions, all of his heart, all of his history in it, all of it just pouring out in each song and in each word, so compelling and so emotional. That's why when we heard that raw voice on Now and Then, when we first heard that stripped down John Lennon voice, in that special on the making of Now and Then, and we heard that, everybody, it's like some people call it spine tingling. I just felt it like in my gut and in my heart. It's like John was in the room. John was absolutely in the room. And I know that that's what, Ringo said the same thing. It's like John is in the room. John, absolutely, he left the Beatles. He went to go find his peace and his love and his truth. I hope he found all of that. I'm sure that he did. But he had to leave the Beatles in order to find all that, to find himself, to express himself his way. Because honestly, that's all of us. We all just have to do it our own way, in our own time. We might let some people down. We might disappoint some people, but unfortunately, that's what happens. John had a big life where he tried a lot of things. He did a lot of things. He changed the world, basically. Absolutely, he changed the world. The dude did a lot. So I don't know where anybody gets this thing where he was lazy, for crying out loud. And he did all of this in a very short time, unfortunately. But we still have those bits of vinyl, the bits of film, the bits of paper. We have that we can hold on to. But most of all, we can hold on to what he has left right here with us. We can hold on to it. I know, again, still corny, still cheesy. I'm sorry. But again, it's a love story, folks, okay? So again, that big life of John is not going to fit into a 2-hour movie. So 4 hours. Give me a 4-hour movie for John, okay? He deserves it. Obviously, they all deserve the 4-hour movie. So what I'd like to see is 4, 4, 4 and 4. Okay? All right? 4 for John, 4 for Paul, 4 for George, 4 for Ringo. So yeah, this is going to be, what is that, 16 hours of Beatles? I mean, I would go for more. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you really want this to be done right, it's got to be 4 hours per movie. Anything else is like, what are you doing? Okay? And I would have every right to be disgusted with that. Everybody would go, what are you doing, man? I'd sit through it. I'd sit through an 8-hour movie all day long because I'm assuming that these movies are going to be released one after the other, not all on the same day. So 4, 4, 4, 4. I like it. Okay? So thank you so much for listening. Appreciate y'all. Until next time, peace and love one another. And then he'll say, no, I don't like what you're singing there, George, but no, I'm going to help you. Here, let me help you out, George. Or Paul, like, what are you doing here? You're acting kind of nutty. What's going on here? Now, oh my God, Paul, that was a great song. Can I sing it? Can I sing that one? So